Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. And most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that every day. And what do I mean by that? I say that because I only speak to transportation professionals on this show. There's no fluff. This is brought to you by people who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take all of this information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. And now that I'm back in studio for the first time in like 7 days, I can actually say, because that's why I proudly fly this American flag behind me right here, ladies and gentlemen. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. It is great to be back home. Holy shit, what a 6 week on the road that happened out there. And I just swore in the first 3 minutes, so LinkedIn's not going to be happy with me. So just a heads up on that. Bill McIntyre, what is up? Corey Buchan, good morning. Adolfo Rodriguez, buenos dias. Adolfo, I owe you a response to a message you sent me. I will get to that, man. It's just been a busy couple of days here. But with that being said, I can't keep this guy waiting anymore because he's busy. He's got a lot of stuff going on, and he's going to come on here and give you guys some truth. April Maroney, let's go. Let's get that business. You are right. All right, without further ado, North Dakota's finest, Gabe Pankinen.
What's up, Jolly? How the heck are you, man?
Oh, dude, I'm doing good now that I'm home. I slept in my bed last night. Man, it's been a whirlwind, but it's one of those things that no matter what, this is what I prayed for when I first started on that broken folding table in my bedroom 3.5 years ago. So I'm not complaining, but man, it was quite a stretch there.
Were you on the road at conferences, or where were you, man?
Yeah, man, conferences, and then a couple of personal trip. My sister got married back home. And it was just a lot, man. It was a lot. It was the most I've flown in a consecutive stretch than I think I ever have in my entire life.
So you're pretty jet lagged, but today's your first day back. Did I hear in the opener you're not allowed to swear? Did you say?
I don't know. I just make stuff up because sometimes I think the LinkedIn warlords put me in jail if I exercise my First Amendment right too much. You know what I mean?
Oh, man. Well, 3.5 years, Jolly. I remember talking to you 3.5 years ago when you first started doing this. Good for you, man. You're still doing it, and it's huge.
Dude, it's wild. It really is, right? Like I, just interviewing people over these last couple of days, like I got a bunch of content that I'm pushing out from the Digital Solutions Conference. And, I don't know, man. I don't take compliments very well. I don't know about you.
We're Midwest. That's why we're taught that you're supposed to be ashamed of being good at stuff.
Yeah. That's very true. But these last couple of days was the first time I actually I heard from multiple people who I interviewed who, they complimented me. They're like, listen, you're really good at this, by the way. And I want you to know that I really enjoyed talking to you. And, it was the first time that I actually think I gave myself a little bit of credit, and I was like, well, shit, thanks. It feels good. 730 episodes later, here we are. Let's go.
Yep. I get that from my 5-year-old every day. So I get hyped up every day when I come home. So he does think that I'm actually building a rocket ship. And that's what I got him for his birthday. My sister got him a rocket ship you can assemble. And so he's been building that just like dad. So he's going to be disappointed when he finds out it's really just freight brokerage and some tech, but we'll let him dream.
Oh, Malachi, dude, it was his birthday. Honestly, man, that post that you put out yesterday was so timely for our conversation today. I loved it, right? Like I just reading that, seeing your son and all of that stuff, man. Cause your thing about balance is what got me the most, right? Because balance doesn't exist. At the end of the day, it doesn't exist if you want to do something. If you want work-life balance, do whatever you got to do to think that you can try and achieve that. I'm not that smart. Maybe it's my public school background, but balance isn't achieved, or like isn't like, you have to earn it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you got to work a lot before you can even think about getting to that point. And I don't know about you, man. I wanted to ask you this. Are you more scared now in business that you're a few years in, and I don't want, I know that you're not satisfied with where you are, but like when you look back, are you more scared now than you were when you first started?
Yeah, I think mostly because I'm driven mostly by the fear of, losing it all. And I think that more than the majority of entrepreneurs who own their business and are running it, it's not the success and the money or any of that that really drives us or me. It's like, hey, I got 25 employees that I'm responsible for now. And all
Yeah.
of this, I see things like Convoy and I go, man, obviously we're not in nearly the same situation. We've never raised money and it's a different environment for them. But I get a little bit nervous and say, hey, how do I ensure that doesn't happen? And you know what the answer is? You can never ensure that that doesn't happen. And
Yeah.
so that's the scary part of business, but it's also life is about contrast. And so if there isn't a contrast of like fear of losing it, then you don't even care if you win it. And so that was kind of what I put in that post is like this industry, when I got into it, it was early or late 2020, right? So we're
Mhm.
coming up on 3 full years here. Everybody knows that we got in when the wave was riding high,
Yeah.
and we're still growing 10% month over month and quarter over quarter. We're still growing, so I'm happy with that. But I do look around and I go, man, this is a crazy market. Borrowing money's tough. We've never done that. Raising money's tough. Now it's almost non-existent.
Mhm.
And we haven't done that yet, but that was something that was on our path in the next couple of years. And so that's not an option right now. So
Yeah.
it's just bootstrap and get as profitable as you can. And weather the storm is actually as applicable as it's ever been right now.
Yeah. No, and that's so true with everything you're talking about, right? And and I touched on the whole Convoy thing on my show yesterday briefly, and because I'm not going to publicly talk, put posts out there. I'm not going to clout chase, because I feel like 99% of the things that I've seen on LinkedIn were either bashing or clout chasing, right? Like, oh, here's my thoughts on this situation, and none of them were anything other than kind of like self-fulfilling kind of stuff out there. Like I said yesterday, like I have all the respect in the world for Dan Lewis, right? Like that guy, they had like, no matter what you want to say, Convoy changed the industry. They really did. No
Yep.
matter what, they changed the industry. And it's just one of those situations that if you're on the sidelines, and most people, I'll say this: if you're judging people who's doing something and you're on the sidelines, like your opinion literally doesn't matter. Especially to me, and like I don't get a ton of criticism, but the stuff that I do, I'm like, go fuck, pound sand, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not gonna throw me off course or anything like that. But again, like I think that in today's market, like you said, it is crazy out there, right? Like especially if you're looking to grow, if you're looking to raise money or anything like that, you literally have to do um a lot more than what it was, right? I think like this is where a lot of the real players are going to thrive. Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to have a massive concept. It's more of a mental thing, man. Like if you're a real player, if you can shut out the noise, dude, you're
Mhm.
going to be just fine, right? If you're going to go, because like again, I love to stay in my routine, right? Like I am a massive creature of habit. Even when I'm out on the road, man, I still get up at the exact same time. I do the exact same thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And I follow that because it helps me, A, clear my mind, but B, stay on my path, right? Like, dude, I made sure to get in there when I was traveling. I had all my outreaches ready to go. As soon as I like got back from the gym and got showered, boom, I hit my outreaches right away. I made sure I got all that stuff in
You
because I
got it.
can't let any of that stuff fall to the wayside.
I think my opinion, and I am building something, and so I guess I can say, hey, I'm not on the sidelines. But when I look at Convoy, I'm not building anything like that, and I've never raised
Yeah.
money, so I still don't get an opinion on how. Really, if you read the FreightWaves article from Craig Fuller, he broke it down like they raised too much money and at too high of a value. And so, like, how could Dan have ever predicted that that would be his downfall? Is I raised too much money at too high of a valuation. Now I can't re-raise because you can't set the bar lower on a re-raise. And so that's kind of the unwinding of that. But I think the effect, I'm excited about the next 2 years for venture capital and private equity in supply chain, because the money will go to the companies who are already profitable.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly not going to flow to any risky tech ideas for a while. But that money does have to go somewhere, and companies like, Rocket or others, and I don't know if we'll ever raise or not. We don't need to. But it'll go into businesses that have proven concept, that have that have an EBITDA that's positive, and
Yeah.
that just need to expand instead of raise money and have this weird path to profitability. It's happened in tech with other companies, and then that came into supply chain. I think that'll be the last of it for a while. And I only say that because of behind the scenes. That's where all the money is flowing. And private equity is very aggressive right now with companies that are in supply chain that are making money month over month. They
Oh,
want
dude.
in on those. And
Yeah.
so I think that'll help the industry, not in the way that Convoy did. And I think that it served its purpose, and like they created awesome tech and they kind of disrupted the old style broker. But
Yep.
it will at least put money in the hands of companies that have a lot of investors already called customers. And the customers have given them feedback on what they want in the system. And then they build tech around what the customer wants. I think the next wave is going to be technology for shipper clients and for customers rather than for brokers.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I see coming. So I'm excited for that aspect of it. The other part is like a lot of people got laid off, and like not many people posted about that aspect except for that it was sad. But I don't know where they're going to land. There isn't a
Yeah.
soft landing for somebody who is high up at Convoy. Nobody
Yeah.
else is hiring because it's a tough market.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I do think is like the worst part of all this. The
Yeah.
executive team at Convoy is still selling their tech. I think they'll be fine. But the 500 employees that were probably not expecting, and Yellow, I kind of liken Convoy and Yellow. They're completely different things, right? Yellow had the union battle. The employees at Yellow, even if they didn't believe the news, they knew something was coming.
Yeah.
The employees at Convoy did not. And so I
Yeah.
think there is a difference there.
Yeah, man. It's from my perspective, all I can do with a lot of these situations, and especially, I don't think that that's going to be the last one. I think that there might be more, and I know that there's a bunch of posts out there like, "Oh, it's going to happen again." We have unconfirmed
Yeah,
reports.
I didn't see any. I saw
I
tweets about it, but I didn't see the actual news story yet.
Yeah,
So
man, it's just a lot of. I think that it's the spray and pray method of content, right? I'm just gonna fucking throw a bunch of stuff out there, and then I can say, "Oh, look, this one came true. I said this. Remember what I said this 6 months ago?" Yeah, man.
Oh man.
But it's like when I see a lot of this stuff, all I do is I actually close off more and more. I get more and more focused on my business, the product that I'm delivering to my customers, and think about that, man. Like I'm always looking like, how do I improve? Right. Like, cause I can't control what anybody else does, and the fact that some of these people think that they can, put a couple of characters into their cell phone and hit send and, their post is going to change the landscape of the industry. That doesn't make you a better service provider, right?
No.
That doesn't build any more customer loyalty. And that's what I'm focused on, right? Cause I can only control my four walls at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do, right? Like I said, man, I feel terrible for people, right? Like I don't want anybody to lose their job, but you know what? The reality is bad stuff happens in this world. Okay. And for some of the snowflakes out there who listen to this show, it is not sunshine or what does he call it? On the
Sunshine and
campaign?
rainbows.
Yeah. Sunshine and rainbows and rainbow land. Exactly. It's not rainbow land out there, like they say in the campaign. It was, what's his face is Cam Brady's Communist Manifesto he wrote as a second grader.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such an underrated movie. It's such an underrated movie.
It really is. And I think, Chris, one of the contrasts, and I brought up Yellow because obviously I'm in the LTL industry much more heavily than truckload, although we do truckload, but LTL is our game and TMS is our game. LTL, and this happened last year, truckload, or in the beginning of this year, truckload rates started to fall. Spot rates were going lower and LTL rates held steady. And everybody's like, why? And all of our customers asked us, why is LTL still higher? And I said, well, they are lagging the market by 90 days. So they'll eventually go down. And they did. Then Yellow went bankrupt. And I was talking about this a month ago on a webinar. It's GRI season. So like general rate increase season for LTL carriers. And a lot of people predicted that it would be like a soft GRI, 3 to 5%. keep up with inflation, basically. And Saya just came out yesterday or 2 days ago and said 7.5% GRI, which is way too
Dang.
high. And it doesn't make any sense except for that they can. And so I live in two worlds right now where I'm watching the convoy news, and I do have a truckload brokerage, and we are being very careful with any, like, we don't have operating lines or anything because we're just trying to stay smart on that side.
Yeah.
And then on the 90% of our business, the rates are getting increased and the LTL carriers are giving us increases. But I can see firsthand a lot of customers are stretching payment terms right now.
Mhm.
Everybody's wanting to get a little extra cash flow. Peak season's weaker than it should be. And we work with retailers, e-commerce, B2B, auto manufacturers, salvage yards, and all of them are a week behind or 2 weeks behind, and then they'll pay. It's because their directive from their CFO is stretch terms. And if that continues to happen and the LTL carriers increase rates and we actually do go into a winter, that's the LTL industry is going to be just like truckload. It's just lagging. And so it's a really interesting dichotomy because truckload is so depressed and there's all these bankruptcies, and LTL, they're like, hey, great market conditions for us because yellow went under, and they are taking full advantage of that for sure. Not just Saya, FedEx gave a GRI too, and the next 5 or 6 carriers will in the next week or two here. So it'll be interesting.
Man, I heard a good quote about that at recently about the LTL market, and they said the reason why we can remain profitable is because we never reduce our rates.
Ever.
Um, ever reduce your rates.
Doesn't
right?
matter what the market is. And I don't want to get into any conspiracy theories, but there's only 10 powerful carriers in the market. And it's
that's
not as if all of them just say, if you don't, I won't.
Yeah, it's interesting like that, right? But I don't know, man. I always look at everything that there's an opportunity out there, and I think like the LTL world is, that's why we were initially going to talk about today, but at the end of the day, we just have real conversations on this show. But the LTL market to me is always like, I don't mess with LTL, to be honest with you, right? Like I do truckload. If a customer ever came to me and was like, hey, can you move this LTL? I do it because like I don't want that, because I'm primarily truckload, right? Like I don't want that one opportunity to go to you. And no, I'm just kidding. But no, that's the thing though, is it's like I would work through it and I'd find a solution. But like I'm just more of like, I want to stay in my lane. I'm going to continue to stay in my lane. I've just had too many bad experiences in the LTL world, and it's just it is, man. It's tough, right? It's like doing a lot of work for not so much return sometimes, right?
Oh yeah. And I think that the general consensus is that from my side, because I play in both industries,
Yeah.
truckload is the shipper understands the dynamics of the rates, the broker understands, and the carrier understands, and they all negotiate. LTL, the carriers decide what the rates are and everybody reacts to it. There is no real, I mean, sure, in 2008, there was a lot of negotiation because they moved it for pennies on the dollar. But ever since then, even into 2019, when the market was low, as long as the carriers had enough volume, they basically set the market. It's a different dynamic. Then there's big 3PLs, and they're not really ever called brokers in LTL. It's called 3PLs, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And they basically hold all of the power for blanket rates, and they try to educate customers. But the customers or shipper clients, they're not nearly as involved in the negotiations, like with these annual RFPs and things like that. It's not the same world. They just want to work with a 3PL who's the expert on that, or they have their own in-house team and they try to negotiate rates. So it's a different world because it's more diluted there. The carriers have much more power on pricing. It's not like JB Hunt sets the pricing for their asset base for the whole market, but
Yeah.
Old Dominion and FedEx kind of do. And so it's a different market. I think LTL is as interesting as it's ever been. And there's a bunch of clients who are not going to pay their bills because there's a lot of businesses that are hurting. And the carriers are still giving increases, and something's going to give. I saw a graph this week on the number of freight brokers who entered during COVID and now have exited the market.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in LTL because there's only like 5 big 3PLs. And now one thing that I've never talked about on this show, but it's official now, is Worldwide Express Group is now Global Trans Unishippers and Worldwide Express. They are the same company finally. That's been news for a while, but they finally rebranded to Worldwide Express Group. They're like $4 billion together. and then you've got like 3 other big brokers, and that makes up the top 5. That there isn't like 100 or 15,000 LTL brokers. It's a very interesting dynamic, and because of that, you're not going to see a bunch of bankruptcies on the LTL side, but the carriers
Yeah.
are certainly going to control the market. If you're shipping both, like a lot of our customers ship both modes, they don't understand one side of it for sure. They don't understand why truckload is the way it is and capacity is weird and spot rates are coming up to contract rates and the shippers are asking for better contracts, or they don't understand the LTL side. But I've never really run into a client that understands both of them.
Yeah.
So it's a weird world.
I saw that exact same. I think it was Kevin Hill's post about the brokers that went out, and I always like, because I'm not saying that that's not a valid number, right? Like I like Kevin a lot. Kevin's a really good guy. But I always want to dig a little bit deeper, right? Because it's like when I see X amount of carriers or MCs go under or X amount enter the industry. And I want to like, what are we talking about by revenue? When's the last time they actually moved a load? Is it how many of them were lapsed and canceled and everything else? Because, I don't know, there's a little dirty secret of the entrepreneur world. Sometimes when people just quit, they don't, move anything for a year and then their stuff just doesn't get renewed. Right.
Well, you have to file an MC 150 form to do a final notice to actually get rid of your DOT. So it looks active.
Yeah. I just want to see that by volume, right? And by revenue. And, I think though that there's, again, but at the end of the day, man, again, like the reality is you guys, people are going to fail. People are going to quit, right? Like people are going to get sick and tired of dealing with, like what you're talking about customers extending their payment terms and stuff. Like people get ups, like, man, I've been railroaded, by a tune of thousands of dollars, like it's a lot, right?
I started the year off losing $60,000 on one client that got acquired and didn't pay their bills, or negotiated it for 10 cents on the dollar because it was a private equity group. That happens, and that was at the beginning of the year. It might be worse at the end of this year, but I think at the end of the day, one thing that I will say is that business is a competition and it's a game, and like you're supposed to try to win. And people, empathy is important, right? To feel bad and to at least say, hey, I empathize with the situation. But like my job is to win. My job at Rocket is to make sure Rocket wins. And so that's all I can do. And I hope that we continue to win in our arena and stay focused on that.
I'm right there with you, man, because it is very hard. It is a competition. I have all the respect in the world for you and my other friends who own brokerages. But I want to fucking crush you, just like I'm sure you want to fucking crush me, right?
Yeah, if you enter LTL, that's for dang sure. No, I'm just kidding.
But and that doesn't mean that we can't share best practices, right? That doesn't mean that me and you can't text back and forth and be like, "Hey, what are you seeing out there?" Yada yada yada. But at the end, this is a competition, right? Like
I just asked you like last weekend about how team drivers work and what to do with that because I had a new client that's moving LTL dedicated as teams, and I was like, "Hey, two licenses, 2 drivers.
Yeah,
how do we do this?" So. We're always learning something.
And that's exactly it, man. And, it's like, sometimes I don't want to ever call it a premature celebration for stuff out there, but it kind of is at the end of the day. I just like a lot of people, like when I started, I didn't make any money, then I made money and I thought it was always going to be that way. And turns out it's not always going to be that way.
Oh man. Tell me about it.
And again, it's like, that's why it's like, if you're going to go in it and you're going to go out on your own, or you're going to navigate through any market, save for that rainy day, no matter what, cash is king. And, it's not make 10,000
is king in this market.
Yeah. It's not make 10,000, spend 12,000. Right. And, for the majority of us out there who are bootstrapping everything and self-funding and whatever else you want to call it, like this is the time that if you're serious about it, this is your time to shine, right? Like how many big businesses today were made in 2008 in other economic downtimes and, when inflation was up and, recession and whatever other label you want to toss on it, right? Like this
Almost
is it.
All like Airbnb and all those big companies in that sphere were all 2008 or after. I mean, there's a lot of innovation. I think that it's because, they raised money obviously, but I think that in logistics, raising money is not really an option unless you're Transfix and they closed on a Series F, but nobody else is really raising money. And so I guess bootstrap companies is now the cool thing. Profitable companies is a cool thing. And guess what? There will be another cycle where people raise a bunch of money. And I'm not against raising money. And I'm not saying that bootstrapping is the only way either. Like, there's obviously, if you want to do something completely disruptive to the industry, you have to raise a bunch of money, and it takes skill. Dan had to have a lot of skill to raise $980 million. Hats off to him. Like, that's crazy skill. That's a very good skill he had. I think that the next 2 years is going to be about how to run a business profitably, and then maybe it'll flip, and it'll be whoever can raise money and run it profitably wins again. But I really just see business as a game. Not that people's livelihoods is a game, but I mean, the game is you have to stay alive longer than everybody else, and you have to win. And winning means you stay in business. It's a very weird outcome, because the only way you win is if you actually stay in business. There is no end outcome of okay, we made it to 100 million, we won. Well, no, you didn't. You could still lose that. It's like marriage. The only way you win in marriage is if you stay married, And so
just listen to your wife and don't do anything else but listen to your wife. No, I'm just kidding.
Happy wife, happy life. That's a Midwest value right there.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, man, I personally think the next wave in freight, the next great idea is going to be doing the intangibles better than everybody else. Because I think there has been a major shift in people actually caring or even doing their job, right? And I think if you go in there and you focus on the fundamentals of this industry, the blocking and tackling of this industry, you're going to be very successful. That's what I'm doing, right? At the end of the day, I went back to we started, because I can't say I went back to the basics. We started and we focus on the basics. I want to repeatedly do the little things right every single time and execute upon that every single time.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm doing.
The simple, a large business is not made out of complex ideas. It's doing the simple things at scale. There it is. And most companies forget the simple things because they hire people and they don't have a good culture, or they hire too many. And, I think that's a side effect of VC money, to be honest, is that you can hire way too many people to be able to actually maintain training and culture. And it just becomes, about a revenue target. I also think that the shift in the industry is going to be back to not gross revenue, but net revenue. So they won't be I'm a $4 billion company or a $5 billion company. It's going to be well, what's your net revenue? As in what's your profit? Not net profit, not EBITDA, but are you actually profitable, and what's your net revenue? That's going to be a metric again that's measured. I think that's favorable for the companies who are doing it that way. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it. It's just favorable for those companies now. And so one thing that I wanted to say, I thought it was interesting. There was a lot of brokerages where their CEOs came out and said, "Hey, we're super stable." Afterwards, they're "This isn't us. This is us. We're super stable." And I just thought that was weird. Did you see the news story? This is not about the brokerages, but did you see that news story about Carta? I don't even know what Carta is.
Never even heard
but
of
their
it.
CEO, there was some bad press written about him. And so he emailed every one of their customers ever and said, "Hey, if you didn't see this story, please delete this email. If you did, here's my rebuttal." And then no one even knew about it until he alerted them to the bad press, and said, "Hey, here's my rebuttal." And so if you Google Carta, it starts to say Carta negative press, and all the news stories are about the CEO alerting people to the bad press. And I kind of feel like there's a similar aspect of that in freight, where if you see Yellow go bankrupt and then FedEx would have come out the next day and been "We're super stable, don't worry." It's kind of "Oh, are you?" And then people look into it. I think it's best to just keep your head down and build a business right now, not to comment one way or the other. You don't have to come out and be "Hey, here's our cash position." Just build a business and service customers. That's the best strategy, I think.
Amen. And that's what I'm doing, Gabe. Like I told you, man, I post and ghost. I do my live show. I put my content out there, but then I'm back into it, man. I reply to messages and stuff when I can. But at the end of the day, man, I'm focused on my business. I'm focused on building this up. I'm focused on fundamentally changing the industry. I'm not focused on what's the hot social media topic this week that literally adds nothing to my bottom line, right?
Exactly.
My brand was built on one thing and one thing only: adding as much value to the market as possible. And that is it. Yep. Talking about these, the shit slinging that goes back, that does not add any value. That is contrary to what I've done. And I'll never go down that route. I'll never go down that route. It's going to be talking about best practices. When I hit certain revenue milestones and certain growth milestones, I'm going to continue to talk about it like I do every day. I literally tell you guys everything that I do inside of my company from an operational and sales standpoint. If it's working for me, it can work for you. So
there it is.
that's it, dude. That's it. That's 30 minutes, bro. And I know
it always goes quick that way, Jolly. I don't know.
I know. It always does. And we got to have you on more often, but I get it, man. You're out there doing real things.
Just trying. Not all glamorous. We're just trying.
Yeah, I feel you. Hey, are you guys hiring at all?
We're going to be hiring marketing at the new year. So we're going to be building our content marketing, video editing, and that side, and podcasting. So that's our next investment. I hope we will be hiring operations staff at the new year as well. We've got like 3 or 4 big clients that are going to onboard. And long as that happens, we don't want to jinx it, then we will need a bunch of people to help operate. But we will be hiring at the new year. If you really want to work at Rocket, we're always hiring, but I'm going to focus on certain departments at the new year.
Okay. Perfect. Well, that's good to know. Well, hey, you guys, that'll be it for today. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday's Q&A day. So if you guys have any questions you have about sales or operations in the transportation industry, DM them over. I'll answer them live on the show. That'll be it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. As always, if you guys get value in what you hear, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.